Okay, so let's go on to the next piece. 21-67, this is 807. I'm sorry, 68, 805, South Rogers.
So
go ahead.
Okay, so COA 2168 is for the proposal for the full demolition of 805 South Rogers Street, located within the Mcdonald Historic District. So the staff does not recommend the approval of COA 2168 because it has come to our attention that the Mcdonald Historic District, when it was reclassified at a federal level, elevated to a federal district, the property was reclassified to contributing. And this has this has also been changed in the shard maps, which are created by the Indiana's Department of Natural Resources and their Office of, I believe it's, I don't remember the acronym, but it is their Architecture and Archaeology Office. So I just put a short timeline of how information came to me. I know that there are additional steps to the Historic Preservation District that were previous. However, I'm just going from, since this project started appearing at the HPC meetings. So July 29, 2021, the original demolition application for the COA was, COA application was submitted to a staff. At that moment, the property was designated as non-contributing in the map. August 12, the HPC meeting, the first review of the demolition request was done, and due to design issues with the that were part of the proposal, it was denied with the concept that it would be resubmitted. August 25th, Mcdonald Gardens is included in the National Register, and the property is reclassified as contributing. That is in recognition that this is a process that had been ongoing for years. At some point between August 30th and October 4th, Indiana's shard files were updated, and both sites were merged. So that's how it appears right now. I emailed the representative to confirm this. I'm not sure which date because there have been multiple updates of the maps. On September 9, Terry Bradbury informally presented the new construction project site to that HPC's meeting on that day. September 21st, the second demolition COA application was submitted, and October 14th is today. So we are looking at this demolition request. I'm only putting this timeline here because there are multiple moving pieces to this proposal, and this property, which was considered non-contributing, is now on the official maps as contributing. Here is the National Register of Historic Places registration form. Did have additional information on the property with some of its history. I'm not going to read it out loud right now, but it is in the packet. And a part of the argument was based on this image from 1947, historic image that shows if you compare it to the property as it is now, what has changed, what has not changed. So there have been alterations, but the main principal features of the front facade are still there. So the Mcdonald Gardens Neighborhood Association does not support the demolition. They do support the owner applying for federal tax returns due to the federal designation of the district. And the architect also provided comments based on his knowledge of the building and the proposal for it, and on the McDonald's Historic District guidelines. So let me see. So yeah, it says we can make additional design changes to reflect the historic two-story porch in the photograph, but the replacement of this existing structure is key for the decision for the entire project to proceed. Renovation is not economically viable. Is another argument. It's all written here, mainly because of all of the changes that would have to be implemented inside. Change definition of contributing. So it was originally non-contributing and now it is. And finally, if there is a public good for the neighborhood component to the demolition of structures in the guidelines. So Bloomington Restorations Inc. also sent in a letter, also talking about referencing all of the components and all of the details that have been mentioned before. And that's the presentation.
Okay, so Terry and Bob, do you have input, further input?
I think to cut to the chase, I think what we'd like to probably do is continue this, but let me ask or at least reflect some comments so that you know where we're coming from, I guess. I guess I would, and as I said this in my summary statement that I sent to Gloria, I think early this morning, and I know that's short notice, but I was a little surprised about after our comments and discussions we had the last time, I made the assumption from his comments that this was a discussion about design of the new townhouse building rather than a discussion about whether to demolish it or not. I thought if we had a design that worked, the demolition of the structure would be inferred from that. And I may have misinterpreted those comments that we had at the last meeting. So that's one piece. I did break it out into 3 applications as was suggested, and that's why you have them, the demolition separated from the new design, but they do go hand in glove. And then I think the piece that's probably most pertinent to that we haven't really talked about is, and I was probably remiss in not bringing this up before, but this is the reason for removing this structure is it's a mixed use historic. It's got a commercial use on the first floor and it's got a residence on the second floor, which if you essentially touch it for renovation of any kind, it's going to require area separations between those 2 uses. It's going to have to go through the state for the commercial use, and you're going to have to have area separations to the second floor or sprinkle it or do. It's going to require a significant amount of reconstruction. I will say that the house, it has been significantly altered and both inside and outside over the years. There is some, and it's a little bit of a mystery to me, and Bob and I have talked about this in a couple of different ways, is the clay tile has stucco directly on the outside, which I find to be a little disconcerting in terms of a construction technique. I was not familiar with that as a common practice. Usually stuccos on wood, at least in this period of time, was wood lath and stucco, possibly even metal lath at that time. So I thought maybe it had a brick veneer on it, but there's no evidence of a brick ledge. So, but the point is, it's really been altered significantly over the year. Now there are those 4 pillars in the front. You're absolutely right in terms of the front. The 2 middle columns are the historic columns, best we can tell. They've got the tapered columns on top of the wood brick piers. And I think that the 2 brick piers on the outboard side are probably original. There's some evidence that what they did is they cut the wood pieces off and just extended the brick on up to the roof. The photograph shows a fake facade, what I would call probably a plain vertical facade, which would not have been an uncommon thing to do for a commercial structure, to have kind of a billboard type front and a gable roof behind it. That's not an uncommon thing to do. So I think what we would be interested in having the discussion about with the neighborhood and with the commission, and this is to see if there's any traction in this approach, is to essentially keep the front pillar configuration, but build a new structure in behind that with 2 townhouses rather than the mixed use. They would be townhouses. You'd have some kind of door configuration between the 2 columns. And I think we can, from a design standpoint, I think we can get pretty close to the scale and be pretty sympathetic. I'm not a big fan of replicating historic properties, but I think we can, that's the overall concern. I think we can get the front facade to look very similar to, at least have that same general character that the historic photograph has. So that's, is there any sense of that's a palatable approach?
Why don't we go through the question and then we'll get some comments from the neighborhood and see where we go with this. So I'm going to ask for commissioner questions. Lee, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
John? Still with us, John? Doug?
No questions.
Sam?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Matt?
No questions.
Bernard?
No questions.
Duncan?
I have a question about the complication that was mentioned with coding and permitting. Aren't you going to have to go to the state anyway?
Not for a townhouse. It falls under 1 and 2 family code. That would be one approach. Even if you have to take it through the state, it's new construction, so you can detail it. If you take it as a multifamily, you'd at least start with new construction so you can detail it without much. I mean, it's pretty typical detailing. So,
wouldn't you have to pretty much gut the interior of this building if you did save it?
Yeah, that's exactly what you'd have to do.
In which case, it wouldn't be any. You'd have to rebuild all the infrastructure anyway.
Yeah, but you end up with exterior walls that are not particularly energy efficient. You'd have to insulate. You'd have to spend more than what you're going to spend just building the thing new.
Well, that's what the tax credit's for.
Well,
I've just renovated a lot of old buildings, and I have, when you use the reasoning about going to the state and the code, I mean, that's just sort of built into every project I've ever done. So, I mean, yes, I'd rather avoid it, but when you renovate a structure of this age and type, especially if you change the use, that's just due diligence.
But it has to be, the 20% only applies to the cost of renovation. It doesn't, there's a little bit of a trick to that. That not all costs, not all construction costs are subject to the tax credit.
No, they're not, but I've written over 40 tax credit projects, and I can assure you that somewhere about 88% is eligible. So
I'd like to comment on this.
What's not eligible?
May I comment on this?
Well, I'd like to complete my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm not arguing that you don't want to do it. I'm just saying, if we were going to think about keeping the building, then it seems like it would almost always have to entail almost a complete gut on the inside anyway. So I'm not asking you to agree with me. I'm asking if that was that considered as part of the strategy?
If you had to save the building and to keep it as a commercial structure and a residential above, you'd have to gut both floors to be able to accomplish the code requirements.
Right. So
now may I speak? I detest bad construction, and don't tell me the old way they did it was good. They didn't have a vapor barrier on the interior walls, so the moisture mitigates to the outside, causing a separation between the stucco and the bricks that it was built on. So the stucco continues to fall off. If you go there and just walk around the building, you'll see it's just been patched and patched and patched and continues to fall off. So you got to gut the thing, go back and rebuild it. It's way more efficient and way more better and will last 100 years if we rebuild it in a way that is modern construction. And then I'm quite willing to recreate the original structure. The picture that's in the file, the historic picture, I'm willing to recreate that look and make it just as close to original as possible. We're just asking to not try to break code and put residential over commercial and to try to salvage ceramic bricks that don't add anything to this. This is my neighborhood. I was born here. And oh, by the way, when I was a kid, this was a grocery store. It was the only place where I could sell pop bottles. But I don't ever recall the upholstery that was said to be in that building. The upholstery shop was in 809 South Rogers. To my knowledge, never in this structure.
That's all I have, Jeff.
No.
I'm sorry.
I would, let me, I mean, this is, admittedly, this is a very, I said this from the get-go. This is not an easy choice. And I understand the dilemma and the frustration and the ambivalence about doing this, but there is the historic, the character of the house or the character of the building is really that two-story gallery porch. That's really what people respond to from a streetscape and a visual and the historic photograph. There's the building itself. I mean, there's nothing, the rest of it has all been remodeled. You know, there's no interior trim. There just isn't anything left that hasn't been touched and messed with over the years. So it's, it's to me, from a preservation standpoint, I understand fully why you're concerned about it, but there just isn't much there outside of this two-story gallery porch. So,
Duncan, were you done?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Jane, do you have any comments? Questions?
Since the developers and owners are really concerned about the condition, should we go over and look at the building and tour it or something?
That's an idea.
That's a good idea.
Chris, any questions?
Not really, except if you keep the original columns instead of rebuilding the original columns, then you have some original material on the front.
I'm quite willing to do that. I'll even replace the brick columns north and south with the original columns.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to let the neighborhood representatives make their comments. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Okay. And again, we had to vote on this without any additional comments from the petitioner or his architect. In the past, when the neighborhood has considered projects, including new construction that has been very radical, what helped sway us was having the owner there to show us and explain to us what they are wanting to do. It is extremely important to show up, number one. Number two, this is a historic structure, and it is definitely a historic structure. And it should be maintained not just in just a facade of it. When Bloomington started, you know, when the showers building or showers company started in the 1850s, there were hardwoods all throughout this area. And so they were noted for making furniture. That's what Showers Brothers did. They made solid wood furniture. And
Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you just to.
Well, I want to bring this up because, okay.
We have lots of COAs still to do.
Let's start okay, I said that. This structure was built in 1825 or 1925. It still has those hardwoods in there that you cannot replicate with new construction. They're just not available anymore. This structure needs to be preserved. And the neighborhood went ahead and looked at this and came up with a decision. Demolition, no. But if the petitioner wished to add on to the back of it and renovate it, and he could make his townhouses on the original historic and then add to the back of it, he could have this, and probably the neighborhood would approve it. But that would require a new C of A. And so, you know, I would love it if the Historic Commission could go through the interior, because there are members there who are involved with construction and could maybe guide them into how this could be renovated. This is an important piece of McDowell Gardens commercial development, and it's part of our history, and it should be saved. It should not be demolished. And as far as building additional duplexes on the site, you're going to run into problems with safety issues with that, with not having access to Rogers Street for fire trucks. So, you know, that's a no. That's all I need.
That's the next one. We'll cover that in just a minute. Okay, is that it? Any other public comment? Commissioner comments? Lee?
No, I don't have any comments.
John?
I think it would be good if the petitioner could somehow save as much as what we can in the front. I think Mel was talking about that earlier. Let's try to retain as much as we can.
Doug?
Yeah, this is a toughie. This is not something that I've spent much time looking at until this came up. And again, it's another, I think, as we talked about earlier, it's a contributing building in a district, which was, as pointed out to me, much different than just a contributing building not in a district. So I think it requires a little more special attention. I do agree with the petitioner about some of the construction of this building. And I also agree with the petitioner or someone else that had spoken, talking about just how it seemed like the columns and the porch on this seemed to be the most recognizable feature of this building. And those were the one things that I wanted to see saved. But again, I don't know how you do that and create something or recreate something. So I'm just, I don't know on this one. I see both sides of this one. And I also understand the neighborhood and their thoughts on it as well. So I'm not sure where to go on this one yet.
Sam?
I think having a walkthrough would be helpful, but I also believe that having a structural engineer take a look at this one would be, if they got a report from that structural engineer saying it was a condemnable building, I think that would go a long way. But given that this is a contributing building and now a federal historic district, anything that would pull it off the contributing list would be problematic. So I think taking a hard look at how to, or if it's a structure that can be rehabilitated is very much worth considering at this point.
Matt?
You know, I'm hearing a lot of frustration from the proponent and architect and neighborhood association, and a lot of passion. And I actually, listening to it all, I could completely understand the frustration, certainly over the issue of the building. Some of the other issues of personal problems were not appropriate to be discussed at this meeting. But in terms of frustrations over the historic aspects of the building or what might or might not be done to it and how the project has been unrolling, I can understand those frustrations. I think they're well justified. And I also hear the proponent making a lot of offers to try to figure out a way to balance some of the needs and desires of the various stakeholders here, including us as a commission and including the neighborhood. So I might just recommend we go ahead out of what we've been doing a little bit more tonight and just deny this one with the expectation that it'll undergo additional design with input from stakeholders and come back to the commission. And because I hear good intentions on the part of the proponent, and I would like to honor that and figure out a way to do that as quickly as possible, because they've been, things have gone kind of back and forth, and I'd like to honor their good intentions.
Bernard?
I think we should take a second look at it. I think a visit to the location would be a good thing. And I suggest we postpone any decision to time after we've considered this some more.
Duncan?
Or I had to unmute. I hear what Matt's saying, and I've been listening with kind of the same ear. I think that there are probably a lot of choices here that we really haven't had the time or the education to explore. It's our instinct to want to save these buildings in these districts, and we also have the reality check that sometimes you can't. But I don't know that discussion has been fully matured in this instance. So I guess I'd like to see it matured, and a site visit might help that. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm not even clear at this point what's actually being proposed by the petitioner. I don't. Is what we have in the C of A what's being talked about? Tearing the building down and keeping the porch? That's not the way I remember.
That's not what's in the COA now.
No.
Right now, it's full demolition.
Right. So I don't favor full demolition without a lot more information than I have.
Jenny?
I have to agree with Duncan, and that's all. Try to make it short.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, hardship is a justification for demolition. We're not convinced that's the case. And sometimes you get a better project when you save some of the authentic part and add to it. And yet there may be real significant problems in the rebuilding of this building. So it's a tough one. And we also have never explored keeping part of a facade. I mean, that's a practice that has taken place in other areas, and maybe it's more frowned upon these days, but each case is different. And we have good actors again who are all well-meaning, and we want to find a good solution.
So I have also mixed feelings about this. I think a site visit is in order. I think the suggestion that at least some kind of building inspection be made of this building to give some credence to the hardship, because basically that's what the petitioner is saying, that this building would be too expensive to redo. I do not want to set this up so that this site just continues as it is. So I think that there's some compromise that needs to happen. And part of that is getting the petitioner and the neighborhood together, and with HPC part of that discussion. So how do we move forward here? I think maybe we can either deny and arrange a site visit, or table it and do a pretty quick site visit, and maybe have the petitioner have a building inspection of this structure. That's my comments.
What's our timeline now?
So this was submitted, hold up, I have the exact date on the presentation. Yeah. This was submitted on September 21st.
So we don't have much time.
Then I would recommend that we deny it.
I move that could you put the number up again, Gloria? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting it. I move that we deny COA 21-68 with the understanding that we'll have a structural inspection, a site visit, and additional conversations about the project. And I'll stop there, because I actually think, though, that means we deny 2169 as well, since that's going to be redone. But I'll stop at deny 21-68.
Second.
Lee Sandwich.
Yes.
Chris Baum.
Yes.
John Saunders.
Yes.
Doug Bruce.
Yes.
Sam DeSauer.
Yes.
Matt Seddon.
Yes.
Bernard Cross.
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion to deny carried.
Thank you all. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to listen to this, and we will come back with another proposal, hopefully that will address everybody's concern.
Yeah, and Bob, I really hope that you reach out to the neighborhood association and that you guys have some discussion. I think that at this point we can either, we have the third one, which is the new construction. And I guess we need to handle that.
You can just pull that off. It doesn't matter until we get this other issue settled.
That's right.
Well, whatever the process is.
Do we have legal here? Daniel, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Okay, so he doesn't, he wants to pull the third one of these. Can he just do that, or do we need to deny it? What's the process?
I think he can withdraw it.
Okay. Okay, so we'll just consider that COA withdrawn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys can get with Gloria and arrange that site visit, that would be awesome.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your patience. So let's move on to COA 21-70.
COA 21-70 is we're revisiting 1302 East 2nd Street in the Elm Heights Historic District. The petitioner for this one is Noah Rogers. And he is requesting to construct a new screen and covered porch where the existing deck is located. So the proposed covered porch is visible from the right of way, but it intends to match the house's existing color scheme and most of the materials. Staff recommends the approval of 2170. It is visible from the streets. You know, and this is considering that this, like the other alterations to the backyard, would be visible from the street. And here, let me see if I can zoom in a little. So that is a 12 by 16 feet with a new gabled roof, a new French doors from the interior. And here's an image to the left of the current deck, how it looks now, and the sample screen porch. This is pretty much how it would look afterwards. So it would be partially covered with a screen to allow for air to come in. Yep.
Petitioner here, still?
Yeah, yes, I am, as well as the homeowner.
Right. Anything to add?
Just that we were planning on doing a fiber cement siding or on the two sides. So basically what you would see from the road, it would have a half wall of fiber cement screening on the upper part. The gable would be open on the back side facing the backyard. There would be no half wall. It would be completely screened all the way to the peak of the gable. There is a small dormer on the back of the house as well that does have some siding, I believe, on it. So we would just basically match the existing, make it look pretty much as the same as it does now. We would just be extending the gable out a little bit. It would drop. The current gable that you see on the back that we have the permanent marker on, that will stay, and the new gable will follow pretty much the same pitch. It'll just be a little under that one. So it'll do a little double gable right there.
Okay. Commissioner questions, Lee?
I don't have any questions.
John?
No questions.
Doug?
Noah, I see your outline here. On this, I assume then you're talking that this will just be screened in wood material, like you said, painted to match either the stone, or are we just matching the
fascia, the dark brown fascia and windows? It's a bronze, royal brown color. We would match that.
Okay. Okay, no more questions.
Sam?
So I see under note 2, it says you're cutting an opening in the nook in order to install a 72-inch double French door, Pella fiberglass door.
Yes.
Is that you're cutting into the limestone on that current deck picture? Is that where you're talking about doing that?
Yes.
And so we don't have any elevations of the porch?
Not a structural drawing, no.
Okay, no questions.
Matt?
No questions.
Bernard?
No questions.
Duncan? Duncan, are you there? I don't blame you for not.
Sorry. I'm trying to keep my video muted because there's a party going on in my house that I've been missing for the last 2.5 hours. I don't have any questions. I will have a comment.
Okay. Jenny?
Yeah, I was wondering what they were intending for the foundation material.
The foundation material, we would just be building a deck. It would basically, your foundation would be at your current codes for your 6x6 posts. And we would trim out the 6x6 posts in a boral trim.
Okay, that was my question.
Chris?
So those are cement board panels with boral trim, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, thanks.
I don't have any questions. Any questions or comments from the public?
Yeah, this is John Webke, the owner. I just mentioned, I mean, it's going to be purely a screened-in porch. It's not going to be a Florida room. There's not going to be any glass walls, no insulated walls. The French door that was mentioned that gives us access from our kitchen out to the screen porch. So it's purely for family enjoyment and eating and pleasure. No neon lights either. So very simple.
One last question. What happens to that window? How do you deal with the door hitting the window?
The door will actually be over a little bit. The window will stay. That's a little seating area that will become part of their kitchen.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner comments, Lee?
No comments.
John?
No comments.
Doug? You with us, Doug?
Oh, did you say Doug?
Yeah, sorry.
Gotcha. I didn't want to be confused with Duncan fumbling with his mute button. And I know what Duncan's going to say, and so I'll leave it some of what he'll say. You know, I know we really like to see some drawings on how it's going to look, and especially I think I go back and I know Jim Rosenbarger is on here. I think he had a petition a few weeks ago in the house on Morton Street with an addition to the back, and I think it clearly showed us how the addition was going to affect the existing house. I really think that's something I'd like to see here on the side view. I've got a pretty good idea, and I think the sample screened-in porch you had shown gives me an idea of what it's going to be, certainly. But, you know, roof shingles, questions about the foundation. I think those are things that we just need to see more of. I think this is a small addition that maybe I'm not as concerned, but I think we've just seen.
Again, this isn't an enclosed part of the house. It is just a deck, a covered porch. So it's not.
Yeah, I get it. I understand that. I know it's the hard part. It's where we've got to do a better job of saying these are the things that we need. I think in the beginning, even for these small things. And I get it. I'm not saying I necessarily have a problem with it in this case, but I'm seeing this trend. I think that we've got to work on. That's really the only comments that I have right now.
So yeah, I'm probably going to reiterate a little bit. It'll be quick. I think there's all sorts of, I applaud you wanting to do a really simple screened-in porch. I think that would be great, but I think sometimes the simplest things are the hardest things to do. And there's a bunch of things that you can run into. So I think I don't have enough information here to see what you're doing. And I would like to see elevations of all stuff visible from the public right-of-way, the backside, the inside, and especially where exactly the masonry opening is going to be relative to the existing window, because that's a permanent change in a contributing house. So I think it has a potential to be a lovely addition. And I'm in no means discouraging you from proceeding with this, but I think for me, I need to see more information to be comfortable with what is going to happen.
So we need engineered architectural drawings to do this plan then?
No, no. What I am saying is we need a scaled drawing. It doesn't have to be by an engineer or an architect, but we need you to go and measure how big this thing is and draw to scale what it's going to be and label all the materials. Because the intersections, you've got this sample screen porch drawing. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different layers on the side. And what about you're gonna incorporate into yours? I don't know. We don't know. I don't know if you know. And how that relates to the existing house is going to change how that house looks. So we just want to know what it's going to look like. I don't care if it's done by an architect or an engineer, or I'd be happy if you did it. Or
that's what I'm asking. I would normally, for a project this small, I don't usually hire an architect. I would obviously I have to submit a building permit to the building department, and I usually do a hand-drawn sketch specifying what you're mentioning. So if something like that would be sufficient, then.
That would be sufficient. I really beg you to make it to scale if at all possible.
Of course, yeah, I use grid paper on it. I'm trying to avoid the homeowner having to pay architectural fees. That's all
Yeah, they can be very expensive. I'm an architect, so I feel your pain.
Doug does a lot of mine, so he overcharges me always, I think. Yeah.
Bernard?
No comment, please.
Duncan?
Yeah, well, Doug preempted me again, but I agree with what Sam's saying. We have to see it, and more important than that, in some ways, is we have to have a record of it. And we have to do what are called, technically under the law, we have to have findings every time we make a decision. You can't have findings if you don't know what you're finding about. So we need that information. And as Sam said, it can be a simple line drawing, really, as long as it's to scale. I also might suggest that you draw it so that it sets back from the outside corner of your protrusion on your house there, because if you try to flush up your porch with the edge of your house, you're going to get into all kinds of trouble, especially in that stone.
Yeah, it's not going to. It has a 1 foot setback, so it's supposed to have.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, I just repeating what you've already heard, but it's not just that we like to see it; we actually need to see it.
Okay,
Jenny.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, everybody's already said what I was going to say, so no comment, I guess. Just back everybody else up.
Chris?
Yeah, as a fellow builder who's had my drawings critiqued before, I appreciate the new low that your Sharpie work showed here. So I'm used to hold the record of the most criticized drawings to bring in, but now this Sharpie helped me get out of that hole. But I totally sympathize with not wanting to hire and do too much drawing for what is pretty self-explanatory. So
that's why I
think you'll find a way to get it a little more, but don't raise the bar too high, Noah, please.
Well, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal with this. I'm still learning this as well. So I just figured it's a simple porch. I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal to have drawings yet. So, but I know I'll make some and can submit within the next week. So
you give it another 30 minutes or so.
Yeah.
I'll actually use a pencil.
Flip time to this to the next meeting.
Do you have what?
Flip time on this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
So going last, I don't have to add anything other than I'm going to suggest that we table this so they can bring back those drawings and then we can approve it, hopefully.
We don't need a motion for that, do we?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we do, yeah.
All right, so moved.
Second.
Dee?
Lisa Anwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
No.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Carries.
So just if you can resubmit those drawings, then we can move forward the next time around. Okay, so 2171, 1208 East First Street.
1208 East First Street is located in the Elm Heights Historic District. The petitioner, James Rosenberger, is requesting the construction of a new front porch. So he actually brings two proposals, and staff did comment that the proposal does partially obscure the front facade. However, scale does not take away from the building. The materials are in accordance with the Elm Heights Historic District requirements. And also did want to mention that it doesn't look the same as the historic structure. So they're both of the proposals to complement, but they don't look identical. This just recommends approval. We do not approve. We recommend the approval of COA 2171, the preferred option. So I'm going to show you there are two options. And Jenny Southern, who happens to be here as one of the commissioners, but also as one of the representatives of the local historic district and the committee, did comment that the plan does look good. So, this was submitted by the architect and petitioner Jim, saying that the house does have certain modernist details to it, to the flat garage, and the rear of the house, so that it is neo-colonial. It does have modern notes. So this is the optional version. I believe this is the. Let me see. Yes, this is the preferred version. Is the optional version. And just so that you can all look at it and observe it a little bit, the sort of porch terrace area would have a stone bottom with columns. And here is a plan of it, existing. So how it connects to the existing porch and how it wraps around the kitchen and connects to the garage on the exterior. This was the other option, which is similar, but the ceiling would be higher, doesn't connect with the garage. And here is a section, sort of how the space would feel. So it would be a similar layout as well, not identical though. So yeah, this is the one that ended up being slightly preferred. And yeah, we'll leave it there.
Jim, anything to add?
Well, I included sort of the rationale behind what we're doing or trying to do. The owners want a fairly roomy front porch, and they specifically mentioned they like the idea of being able to speak out to people walking down down the sidewalk, that kind of thing. It was interesting to look into the style. It's sort of a farmhouse from the 1950s. My intuition is that the architect, there are a set of plans. It's pretty nice to have that. Sort of wanted to stick in some modern elements. There's quite a bit of flat roof around the perimeter of the house, and I think the front elevation is really clarified by the flat roofed porch, or I'm sorry, garage. I think that's kind of unique, and that's what got me headed towards a more modern approach, sort of a mid-century approach for the front porch. The other element was to raise the beam, the front beam of the porch up fairly high. I I think the pictures show that it looks like the main level has been sort of scrunched into the ground. Generally in a classic or a traditional building, you like to see the first floor be taller. And that's, so I'm trying to mitigate that with a higher porch. I've done that before. I showed a picture just for comparison in the packet, if you want to get into it that much. But the porch does wrap around the east side. They have a kitchen connection. A section of the roof of the porch is a trellis, and that's right over the kitchen window to let some extra light into the house. But it's still, you can see the shadows in my drawing. So any questions, I'll be happy to give it a shot.
Thanks, Jim. Lee, any questions?
No, I don't have any.
Don?
No questions.
Doug?
No questions.
Sam?
So the preferred option is the one that retains the original low roof?
No.
Oh,
No.
Preferred option is the one that removes that metal trellis and that partial roof and goes straight out and up, floats above the garage.
So it's the cleaner version with the higher roof all the way across. Yes.
It's also a little bit more
That's
open
not
on
the one. I've got a different one in my packet. So it's not the optional one. It's not that one. That's on the screen.
Right.
It's that one.
That's
the preferred one, right? Okay.
Yes.
And this is the north facing porch, right? The facade faces north.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. This was Teacher Tim's house, yeah?
Yes, yes, it
Tim
was.
Myers, yes. He taught my daughter. So I'm really familiar with this house.
So this is the preferred version, right? We're looking at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So quick question for Jim. It looks like it's basically a low slope roof on top where there's not a trellis.
yes.
Okay. And then what is the material of those big square columns?
They'll be simple, rectangular in section, and faced with probably some kind of like voral trim.
So it's a painted wood-ish thing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Pat?
No questions.
Bernard?
No question.
Duncan?
No questions.
Jenny?
No questions.
Everybody's getting tired. Chris?
No questions.
I also have no questions. Any questions or comments from the public? Commissioner comments, Lee?
I think it's appropriate, mid-century riff on this wonderful house, and I will support this.
Don?
Yeah, I agree with Lee.
Doug?
Yeah, I've said this before. It's kind of interesting, everything in this neighborhood. I grew up on 1209 on Maxwell, so this was kind of behind us. And so I always wondered about this house. So it's interesting to see that it has a set of drawings and a little bit more of the history of it. I think this is a great, sympathetic proposal. And I think the lines are really clean, and it still lets the house really show through because you've got it designed in such a light manner that while it does sit out in front of the facade, I think it does a great job of still letting you see the facade. So I don't have any problems with it at all. I like it.
Sam?
I actually, even though it pulls off the original porch, I like this better because it cleans it up. That said, I forgot to ask if anybody from the neighborhood had anything to say.
We had a comment at the beginning.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I missed that one. So I like this one. It's clean and sympathetic. I don't have anything for
Matt?
I think it meets the guidelines, and it is also attractive and creative. So well done.
Bernard?
I like it. Has my vote.
Duncan?
Yeah, I think it's very nice. All for it.
Jenny?
I'm good with it.
Chris?
Yeah, it kind of finishes the house.
I also like this, and I also appreciate Jim's drawings. And after today, having something to really look at is very nice. Jim, thank you very much.
You know, it's what architects do.
That's right.
Keep plugging us. Keep plugging us.
Need a motion.
Thank you.
I move to approve COA 21-71.
Second.
To the draw.
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce,
Yes.
Sam DeSaller,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you again. Okay, let's move on. COA 2172, 106, West
So
6th.
this is for the new signage. Most of the information and description should be in the packet. And the petitioner wants to put a Quevedo sign where Grazie is located, or was. And so the staff recommends approval. Sorry, this structure says contributing. It's actually not contributing according to the shard maps. However, it is part of the historic district, the courthouse historic district. Yeah, the sign would be located exactly where the sign and the curtain would be located where the existing signs and curtains are. So it wouldn't be covering any additional historic real estate, or not historic, but any of the rest of the structure's real estate. Yeah, so this building is from the 19th century. It was extensively remodeled in the 1950s. It's technically designated as non-contributing, but it's definitely part of the fabric of the area. Just had to throw that in there. But yeah, it doesn't, none of the proposed stuff covers the windows, or it does cover some of the stone, but it's already covered now. So staff recommends approval.
Petitioner here. Did the petitioner give up? Anybody from Project Corporate? And we don't, has any material lists or materials of the sign?
We'll look in the packet.
Aluminum channel letters with LED lighting, and the awning is all welded aluminum frame and heavy duty vinyl covering.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. All right, so we don't have a petitioner, but let's go ahead. Lee, do you have any questions?
Can we hear this if there's no petitioner?
I don't think we can.
No, I think this one.
I'm so confused. Daniel, what's the deal with that?
So if this one, there's kind of a mix of rules. So the guidelines, or I guess the actual procedural rules for this commission state that a petitioner must be present to have their petition heard. Then the statute and the ordinance, though, require that action be taken within 30 days. And so if a petitioner is not present for the first hearing and the next hearing will fall within that 30-day window, you can go ahead and bump it to that next window. But if we're getting close to that 30-day window, then it would probably be best just to deny it and then have them resubmit it.
So what's our timing like, Gloria?
I would have to look at exactly. This one was This one was submitted the last day, I think September 30th. So it would be eligible to be reviewed. On
so we do have the time to do that.
So you can continue it to the next one and then just, remember at the next one that it needs to be decided at that point.
Okay. So
I make a motion.
Yeah.
I move to table COA 2172.
Is it table or continue?
No,
continue.
I withdraw the previous motion. I move to continue COA 2172 to the next meeting.
Second.
Pete?
Dee Sandweiss?
Yes.
Chris Thurbaum?
Yes.
Don Saunders?
Yes.
Doug Bruce?
Yes.
Sam DeSaller?
Yes.
Matt Seddon?
Yes.
Bernard Cross?
Yes.
Jeff Golden?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have one demolition delay. Let's move on to that. 2115.
So this demolition delay is for the petitioner, Lindsay Thompson, is requesting for the full demolition of the detached garage of this notable structure on 518 East 2nd Street. So the detached garage is in disrepair, hand inspection and summer recommended repairs. So the structure and the garage date from the 1920s. The garage does appear in the 1927 Sanborn map and is made of wood lath covered in 4-inch clapboard, has pyramid roof covered in shingles and moss. The structure is missing its front doors and is in disrepair. So here's a Sanborn map, and the little structure behind 518 is the garage. And here are some two photos. The packet has more images, but 2 photos of the current structure. So they want to demolish it. And staff recommends the release of this building, of this demolition, 2115.
Petitioner here? Lindsay?
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Not at the moment.
Okay, great. We'll have a round of questions. Okay, Lee, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
John? John?
No questions.
Doug?
No questions.
Sam?
Have you had an engineer look at this one?
Have I?
Yes, the petitioner. Yes, you. Thank you.
Yeah. I haven't had an engineer look at them. We have a contractor who we usually use for these kinds of jobs. I had him look at it, and I had our roofer look at it.
And the results of that?
So the description is disrepair. So what was their evaluation?
Yeah, so we're trying to be in compliance with hand. And so their evaluation was that it would be like a full on renovation. Like they would have to basically like redo the entire structure. We're talking like support walls, new roof, etc. I don't know that we could get that done. I definitely know because my contractors are also busy right now in the time in compliance with hand. So hand actually made the recommendation to apply for the demolition.
Thank you.
Matt?
No questions.
Bernard?
No questions.
Duncan?
I just want to clarify something, Lindsay. This started with hand because it was in disrepair.
Correct.
And
yes, we're just trying to be in compliance with
for the rental permit.
Correct. We're just trying to be in compliance with hand for our rental permit.
And hand recommended that it be demolished in a historic district?
Correct. Gentleman I spoke with on the—
It's not a historic district, Duncan. This is demo delay.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's in the survey. I'm sorry.
It's like a notable house from what we were told.
In the survey, that's right.
Yeah, and so what we're just trying to do the quickest thing to once again get our hand permit and be in compliance. I think right now we're technically outside of our 30 days. Yeah, just working to be in compliance with hand.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jenny?
Yeah, I was just wondering, are you going to replace it with another garage, or you're just taking it down, or?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We honestly, we have some small garages like this, and we just don't see tenants using them very often. So we would kind of leave that up to you. We had two options where we would just demo it, and we really like, we just plant some trees back through there. And let that be greenery space. It kind of helps separate that house from the yard next door. Or we would put in additional parking. But we would completely leave that up to what you guys would prefer there.
Chris?
Yeah. You probably know that you can't build anything back there because of zoning setbacks. Like, one of the values of those garages is they're built pretty much on the property line or close to it. So you give up that spot if you take it down. So you're doing two things. You're saying we'll never have a building here again in this spot. And you're losing something kind of valuable. But it's weird, you're making a business decision on a 30-day deadline, and there's no way you can fix it in 30 days. So I see the problem. Are there lots of properties of this era that you have little structures, garages on? You referred to several others.
Correct. I represent a homeowner, and he's really a big fan of buying kind of the Mission style, Foursquare style, like houses built in the 1920s. And I think that we see a lot of them kind of have these small structures. Once again, we initially did research into like repairing, but once again, it was just I have two contractors that we use, and they're like, hey, we can't get you in until like next spring, and that would be a problem. We would really like to get our hand permit now. 30 days ago. So I understand what you're saying completely, that we wouldn't be able to build anything back there. The parking that's there is sufficient. Once again, tenants haven't used that space. I mean, right now it's just not being used. So I think that we're okay with the fact that nothing would be able to be built back there. And like I said before, we're okay if there's no additional parking that can be put back there. We're a big fan of trees. So we would probably just, if you guys had recommendations, or, we would just put some trees back there to help kind of separate, like what you said, property lines.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I don't have any questions. Are there any questions from the public or comments? Commissioner comments, Lee?
Nope.
John?
I kind of a problem, tearing down this garage, because in the future, they may not own this property, and another person may want to have that garage. And it is a part of history over there. I think it would be best if Han would give them an extension to get it repaired.
Doug? I'm going to ask our fearless leader to comment on that once we're through with this. Doug? Can't hear you, Doug. Doug, you with us? Let's move on to Sam.
This is we either designate or let it go, right?
This is demolition delay, yes.
Yeah, so I don't see designating this house, but I would encouraging the petitioner to apply for an extension on their hand permit. We would support that, but you know, I don't think we can designate this.
Matt?
I am not going to worry about a small garage like this with nothing particularly special about it in the back of the house and barely visible from the street. So I would support releasing the delay.
Bernard?
I support releasing the delay.
Duncan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into a long argument about why it's special, but this is a one-car garage. It was built in the 1920s. It tells a whole story about how people lived and how they drove and where they parked their cars. It's as significant a part of the arrangement as the house itself. What troubles me here is not that it's worth saving. I mean, I even think that the landlord might think it's worth saving, but that this seems to be caught in some kind of administrative glitch, and that Hand is supposed to be respecting historic property is like somehow overseeing the administration of this demolition, if by implication, if not in fact. And so I like Sam's idea of if the owner is willing to at least go to Hand and say, look, the Preservation Commission thinks this ought to be saved, or at least Duncan thinks it should be. I guess some don't, but you know, if that's in the cards at all, I think it's worth an effort, because I'm a landlord and I have run into some stuff like this with Hand. I have a single car garage that I actually restored, and my tenant uses it, but I have run into this sort of grappling issues about timing and compliance for landlords and stuff, which I think are ultimately unfair in some way. So my guess is that they would show some understanding if requested, especially if we backed the owner up.
Which we would.
This is Daniel with legal. There actually is a Board of Housing Quality Appeals that landlords can make petitions to extend their time to complete repairs and those sorts of things. But there may be a situation here, and I'm not familiar with this particular property off the top of my head, where that occupancy permit may have expired. And so they may be kind of technically out of compliance with Title 16, but there may be some kind of variance that can be requested through BHQA to maybe facilitate a temporary permit or something else like that.
I can speak to that. I can speak to that from the best of my memory, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Y'all have to forgive me. I'm sure it's been a long night for you guys, but it's been a long night for me. I spoke with somebody on the phone, and I think that we had talked about the BHQA as like the option. And I think that like the time frame he was talking about was like 60 days. He wasn't so set on the fact that that they would give us, because like I said, I asked for like a year-long extension. I mean, we're almost in winter. I'd probably have my maintenance man do, he's a woodworker, do a lot of the like structural part, and then my roofer do the roof. And I just don't think I could get it done until the spring, potentially summer, a job that size right now. And that was like the thing, like the time period, like them being willing to grant that long of a time period.
So I'm going to ask John Zodi to chime in here and see if we have any options.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, I would concur with Daniel here. Lindsay, if your rental permit's expired, there is, the Board of Housing Quality Appeals that you would go to, and that's the 60-day time limit. I'm not sure who you spoke to in our office, if it was someone at the front desk or somebody on our inspection staff. So I do want to make sure I'm understanding, Jeff, that if this is a demo delay, so if the HPC doesn't act within a certain period of time, then it
gets released.
Yeah. So I think we have to reconcile those two things. And Daniel Dixon, maybe you can chime in there. So that's my concern, is I'm worried about these timelines getting offset. We're happy to do our best to work with folks. That's not my point, because I think there are competing interests, not in an adversarial way here, but they're just parallel interests, I should say. So I think we'd want to look at those, but I don't want the timelines to get out of whack, if that makes sense.
And John, just to jump in again, there is precedent for issuing temporary occupancy permits for dwelling units, but then expressly excluding accessory structures such as garages, so long as those structures are sealed from people getting in. So that could be an option that hand could do to keep them in compliance if they're interested in preserving the structure, even if it's not designated.
Did you say they could seal it?
Yeah.
And hand could accept that?
You said there's precedent for it.
Yes.
And I do want to just go. I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a demolition delay. So if we don't release this permit, then the whole property goes to City Council for designation.
Right.
So again, we're dealing with this balance of, do we really want to start that process? Is that something that's viable even in this?
Jeff, we can push this out for 190 days or something.
And we can push, that's 90 days, I think.
90, 180 days. So it's not, I don't think it's on us to be that urgent.
I would add that it's a notable structure. And sometimes these little moments call attention to a property. And what would all the bureaucracy do if we start to designate this property? They'd have to adjust to it.
Sorry, guys. I'm still catching on to all the lingo and all the rules. So is what you guys are saying is that if you don't issue the permit, this will go to the City Council to potentially be deemed as a historic property?
No, we would have to recommend it as a historic property.
And once you recommend it, does it usually pass like as a historic property?
Not necessarily.
But usually,
I think the homeowner loves historic once again, he's all about preservation and once again, he buys these properties because he loves to fix them up. But I think I don't know.
I will say that the property owner does have, based on my experience, he's another good player in the market, especially in the rental market.
We would appreciate hearing you say that. And I want to say that we love hand. We work very closely with hand, and we just want to be in compliance with them and, appreciate what they do. So,
Lindsay, can I ask, I know the structure's in disrepair, but is it considered unsafe where if it were sealed? I mean, there's a
part of the roof that's falling in, like the repairing on this thing would be, it's not like a quick, we looked into it, like my roofer looked into just like re-roofing it. Cause I worked with Mike Arnold. I was working with Mike Arnold. I think he's the one who did the inspection. And we were like, look, we can't really re-roof it without fixing the walls so that because we re-roof it and it would just fall in the middle, right? So it's like the framing actually needs to be redone. That would lead to the siding needing to be redone, which would then the roof would all need to be replaced. So that was when I was speaking to one of the front office people, and they just recommended kind of going down this path.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. I just want to caution the commission, and I'm saying this, meaning that we feel like we need to get a little more information here. Mike Arnold is our neighborhood compliance officer who does our unsafe buildings. If this structure is unsafe in terms of a tenant living in the house, and we need to be mindful of that issue where it's a danger, it could be a potential danger to the tenant living there, we do need to be mindful of that. So I want to just caution I want to say that because we're sort of discussing this in real time, that is a big consideration for hand on whether we should think that garage should be taken down. I feel duty bound to say that. That being said, we happy to go back and kind of figure out what process could be undertaken here. But again, I go back to the reconciliation, the timelines on the demo delay.
So we have time to table this till the next meeting. And then maybe we can get some ducks in the row and have a better idea.
And the owner can consider his position on a designation too. And I would say 4 pieces of OSB would make this garage not a hazard.
Right. Right.
So
So are you willing to go chat with your contractor, chat with Han, see what kind of bad shape it's in, and if it's okay, slap some plywood on the doors and on the roof and wait till spring? Provided you get an extension on your permit?
Yeah, I think that would definitely be something we could work on.
And Sam, I just want to, not to contradict the commissioner, but I do want to just say, like, we've got to be, if Mike Arnold's been to look at it, that means there is an unsafe issue there, and we've got to be really mindful of that. So I just want to.
That's why I'd like to table this tonight, and we can come back to it if that's the issue.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I'm not misleading any of the commissioners.
No. The intel we have says it's in disrepair. It doesn't say it's unsafe. So if it's unsafe, that totally changes the conversation.
Fair enough.
Maybe 5 sheets of OSB.
I just didn't want to lead anybody down the wrong path or set expectations wrongly. So thank you.
So Daniel, if I'm not correct, if we don't do anything, it just goes to the next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. You have, I think, 90 days from the date it comes to HPC to do something with it. So.
Right. So if we don't, so I think that's what the commission is leaning towards. We're going to take no action tonight and get some more information from the actual inspector and then take it up again at the next meeting.
But if it is an unsafe condition, please notify the commission as soon as you can.
Yeah.
So I need to contact Hand and work with getting that extension and then come back for another meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
And feel free to have Han call us if you need us in your court. Let them know that we're.
Yeah.
Lindsay, I'd recommend trying to get a hold of Mike Arnold again and me, and we have other staff here too. And let's talk about it. But Mike will kind of be the most direct route here. So let's talk. I'll put my email in the chat so you have that, and just shoot me an email and we'll talk from there. Okay.
Cool. I hope you know we're just doing whatever we can to be in compliance. So.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you, Lindsay, for your time.
Bye.
Okay. New business.
Okay, so today we have the nomination and presentation. So I talked to Bill Bianco, the owner, and his architect, Jacob, a few weeks ago, and they, for their reasons, they have a project they would like to do on the property 2001 East Hillside Drive, Lot 8. And so because of the significance of this property, we decided after conversation to go ahead and nominate it for local districting because this is the James Ferris house. There is a much longer staff report in the packet. I hope everybody was able to look at it. I already notified, put in public notice and sent letters to the neighbors and to the owner and sort of condensed the whole process and to, on the staff side, attempt to expedite this process as much as I could. There's only so much that can be done. But yes, so the property is already designated at the state level. And here in the staff report, I have highlighted A and C from the historic. So 1A and 1C has significant character, interest, value as part of the development, heritage, or cultural characteristics of a city, state, or nation, or is associated with a person who played a significant role in local, state, or national history, and exemplifies the cultural, political, economic, social, or historic heritage of the community. And on the architectural side, it exemplifies the built environment in an era of history characterized by a distinctive architectural style. So a few months ago, you saw the Thomas Smith house on Pickwick Drive. This is the James Ferris house, which was Thomas Smith and James Ferris were actually somewhat related, and they were part of the same Covenanter community that came to Bloomington in order to leave the state slave owning regions of the United States. The community is well known. There is a lot of oral history on the community's participation in the Underground Railroad, and there are oral histories regarding the potential use of this house as part of the Underground Railroad. The Ferris family has and continues to be a prominent, they've influenced and affected Bloomington and IU's community in many different ways throughout the centuries at this point. Here is the map with the location of the property. So the property is highlighted in red, right? And the house is, the historic component of the house is in bright red. This house is a mid-19th century I house, federal style I house made in locally sourced brick. Here are some, and the house has been reported often throughout the years in local newspapers, in different forms of media. There are multiple drawings and impressions made of the house. It has been carefully and lovingly kept by the owners. They know the story of the house. They have worked with the repair and restoration of different components. Most of the windows are original. The roof has been replaced. One of the chimneys has been expanded. However, the original material is still there. Let me see. So here you can see, if you zoom in, the original chimney and the extension. The grounds around it are also well kept, including the wrought iron fence. And so, yeah, that's my presentation for the James Ferris house.
I will add, I've been in this house probably 3 times, and it's special and really well maintained.
Agree.
And it has an addition that is sympathetic to the floor plan.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
On the staff report, are the things that are bolded what you're suggesting be used in the nomination to city council?
Yes.
I would add 2A. Embodies distinguishing characteristics of an architectural engineering type. I mean, this is an I house, as you pointed out, and it's a really good example of one.
Okay.
And it hasn't really been altered in any way that would affect the appearance of the I house facade. So I would add that.
Agreed.
And maybe F. The trouble with F is you just have to have been here long enough to have driven by it. You know, I've worked in this house for the last 30 years, it seems like, off and on. So for me, I remember this house before the addition was built around it. So for me, it's very much a familiar visual feature.
So what's our next step?
I was wondering if there also could be mention of that fence is really beautiful and very iconic, I guess.
Is it aluminum?
Limestone. I don't know if it's a Seward fence or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I don't think I've seen any other one like that. So it's distinctive.
Yeah, that'd be important to save, of course.
So can we take action tonight, or do we have to wait till next meeting?
So I made it so this is a public hearing as well. So I talked to Daniel Dixon in legal about condensing the process as much as possible to see if it can be voted on. The owner is present.
I can jump in. This is Daniel Dixon with legal.
Yes.
Yeah, Gloria went ahead and ran the publication in the newspaper that's required for the commission to take action on the nomination tonight. So this would be an opportunity for public comment before the commission takes official action in nominating. So you would be in a position to vote tonight after public comment.
Okay, so I'm opening the floor to any public comment. Hearing none.
Support it.
The public's gone
Hearing
home.
none, we can move on. We need a motion.
Motion to approve. Is this got a COA on it? Motion approved the James Ferris house being designated historic.
Second.
Lee Sandmark,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Doug Bruce, Sam DeSauer,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes. And now we need to place interim protection on it, on the house. So I need a motion for that.
So moved.
I'll second it, Matt.
Lee Sandwise,
Yes.
Chris Sturbaum,
Yes.
John Saunders,
Yes.
Sam DeSauer,
Yes.
Matt Seddon,
Yes.
Bernard Cross,
Yes.
Jeff Golden.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you to the owner for being cooperative in this process.
Mr. Chairman, Jeff, may I make a quick procedural comment? I apologize.
Yes.
So Gloria, let's just make a note. And I just wanted to say it publicly. There are some timelines we have to adhere to. I appreciate the homeowner being on, but we do have a time clock that starts ticking now for official notification to the homeowner. So if you could make a note of that, and we can get on that tomorrow, because these meetings fall on a day before the weekend. So the timeline's real tight on official notification. So thanks again to the homeowner and the commission.
Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you all, and thank you to Gloria for expediting this process for us.
Really important house. Thank you.
Gorgeous.
So I have one final little thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is more for your information, and I hope to take less than 5 minutes talking about it. But this is something I've started dialoguing with various people, including Steve Wyatt from BRI, because they performed the most recent full city survey of Bloomington. But it's come to my attention that 2 buildings skipped demo delay in the last month. The first building was in the northern area, was around the sports stadium area and the northern streets of Bloomington. And then the second one is, I didn't put the name for it, sorry, the address for it, but it was 1000 something Park Avenue, just south of Bryant Park. And the planning did not address this. And I actually wrote them and asked, how do we address structures that are of historic typologies, just from a visual, cues that have not been surveyed? What is the policy with that? I've already seen 2 in this month, and so that raised 20 million alarm bells and red flags for me. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. This is the Bryant Park area, which is not designated as any historic district, but has enough material for the neighborhood if they wanted to come. I kind of thought it would be, but there are large swaths, and I just put the screenshot as one example of many areas. As you can see, I highlighted in green. There's one contributing structure in a large area there, but the rest were not. They don't even say not contributing. And then as you can tell to the north, there are many other gaps in the survey. And my concern is that some neighborhoods may want to become a historic district, but might not, I don't know, like there might be a lot of things that just skip demo delay because they don't even come to us. And I'm not sure the age of the structure that was, did not even come through demo delay. Planning just sent an FYI and told me, well, you know, if it's not in the survey, we're not even going to send it your way. So, well, in a more polite manner, professional manner, but that was the gist of it. So yeah, a lot of bungalows and a lot of other structures. And I don't know if there's any structure that might be considered notable or, you know, that may just have been skipped over. I just wanted to bring this to your attention.
So did you talk to Steve, who did the survey, and why these properties aren't?
Yes, I talked to him. He said that they based their survey because the survey does contain 6,000 structures. Bloomington has one of the most comprehensive surveys in Indiana, as Indiana stopped doing stopped including contributing structures in their survey some years ago, and Bloomington still includes contributing structures as newly added buildings to surveys, and that they actually added additional structures. So this might just be an issue that's just a legacy ongoing issue. He did tell me that they did as well as they could. They resurveyed buildings that were in the survey and they added hundreds of additional buildings. So it might not be an issue of oversight, but rather of a huge a scope. Anyways, I talked to him after I put this in the agenda, but I did want to just, you know, just put a pin, let you know this is happening.
So what action could we take?
I'm not sure yet. On my part as staff, I'm going to continue investigating what options we have. For now, this is an FYI.
So do we have a budget if we wanted to survey this small area?
Well, I think, Chris, this is just an example of areas that have been missed. Mm-hmm. And that there's many more like this.
Right, but you got to start somewhere.
Right.
Well, part of what I want to do is just continue looking whenever I have time, or if I continue find interns or something. Time resources is look to see if and what other gaps there might be in the survey. And I'm also looking through existing surveys and just trying to, there's other internal like cleaning and dusting within the city webpage, but that's related but not, you know. And then there's other newer surveys like the Mcdonald Gardens Federal Survey, which is over on Post, this one. So there's some cleaning up to do. I just want to let you know this is happening and let you know that I will continue figuring out strategies to work with it.
Great.
Thank you.
Have you talked to Steve Wyatt at BRI about this issue?
Yes, I just mentioned that.
Because he did the resurvey.
Yes.
And right. Basically, he said it was a big job and they missed some stuff.
But that they had added many buildings.
Right. That's what I was going to say. And also, this very large area that you have outlined here is almost all new construction.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. It's south.
If you drove through that neighborhood, it all looks like it's all bungalows, and they're all about 10 years old.
Okay.
So plus the stuff on Palmer are about 25 years old.
Okay.
Yeah. But I realize it's a problem. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's Steve and BRI did a very, very thorough resurvey.
Oh, yes.
Just a couple of years ago.
And I'm incredibly grateful for it. My only concern is that it is the main tool for demo delays. And if for any reason that 1% of buildings gets skipped over, then there's literally nothing, no protection whatsoever. That's the only reason that I brought it up. It's not to complain about it because I do recognize, and I did tell Steve that I'm in a very extremely privileged position to be able to have the tools that we have right now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Keep us informed.
Yeah.
Let's move on. There's no old business. Any commissioner comments tonight?
I'd like to know if it would be possible to make the agenda smaller.
I would like that.
I mean, I'm suggesting it for all of our benefits for one thing, but you know, a 4 or 5 hour meeting is a lot to ask. And
yes, it is.
And I know that you're doing your best and you're really busy and probably somewhat overwhelmed. But my understanding was that in the past, when petitions came in, you know, at a certain point, they're just cut off to the next meeting. And it's not like everybody gets to be on the meeting because they're ready. I mean, we can't hear, you know, I mean, I thought tonight was pretty, I thought we did a pretty good job considering the complexity of some of the things we had to deal with. But I fear that, you know, it's easy for your mind to go away when you're hitting COA number 14, you know.
Right.
And I think there's a realistic expectation that there be some limit. You know, even the city council is trying to limit their meeting time. But
I will initiate some talks with Gloria and John and legal around what we can do around that, what's possible, what's, you know, I think that there's some fear around timing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll make sure that we do that because this is 2 meetings in a row.
Yeah, and I know Nancy Easton, you know, she took so many, but she thought was a manageable 2.5 hour meeting. And after that, they got kicked to the next. She just told them when they came in for petitions, we can't do it this week. We're going to have to do it. You know? Unfortunately,
Nancy's, I did not have those. I am appreciative of you telling me this because none of this has been written down at my desk.
No, I'm sure that's true.
And we have new leadership at hand. And
yeah,
there's some transition.
Yeah, but you know, I just thought if I complained, maybe somebody do something about it.
I like it.
And there's volume, so it's tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we only
I
have 3
appreciate that
meetings
there's
left.
volume too. Okay, great. Thanks. Any other commissioner comments?
I was going to say we only have 3 meetings left to this year.
Yeah. Any public comments? Any announcements tonight?
Good work, everybody. Really good work. That was a tough night.
I appreciate all you guys' patience.
Thank you, Jeff.
Way to manage a tough meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gloria, good job.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Let's call it a night. We are adjourned.
Night,
Good night,
all.
everybody.
Good night.